Guess who it is? Eric the Racket Scientist. And yeah, I guess it's been a while since I've done one of these. If you've been keeping up with my channel, you'll know that I have a lot of exciting videos out now, and then haven't done kind of a grip related video in a while, and that's a couple reasons. One is because I simply just don't have many rackets that I do need to regrip right now. And also on the other hand, I have been busy with more exciting projects. So there's that. That being said, these types of videos are really nice for me because they're cathartic. I can just kind of sit and talk and not worry, not have too much pressure or editing or whatever. So there was one thing that I was kind of curious about that I wanted to try, and that's actually why we're here today. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So right here I have one of my RG08 CQs. So you may know, if you've watched some of my previous videos, that this is my second one. So I have another CQ. I also have an AQ. Now my other CQ and AQ, they have very similar specs. Both have balance point of around 287 as tested. This one, however, is a little heavier and more head heavy for some reason. So it's a little bit of a black sheep. Still like it, but I thought this might be an interesting chance to experiment. So one thing about these rackets, and some rackets that you'll get from Redson RG08 come to mind. I don't think Yonex does this, and I'm pretty sure Yonex doesn't do this. I don't think Victor does this with any of their rackets, where they have the handle covered in like a shrink wrap, and you're going to see what that is in a moment. But essentially the shrink wrap, and if you've seen my other grip videos, usually I'll strip the handle down to the bare wood, and then I'll do electrical tape, and then I'll do the foam wrap and whatever. Some rackets come from the factory with a shrink wrap, so like kind of a rubber plasticky tubing that is heat activated and then shrinks onto the wooden grip. And that's nice because it makes preparing those rackets really easy and stuff like that. But there are a couple implications which I will go into as soon as I start handling the racket. And one way you can tell that the racket has that without undoing the grip is you'll notice, maybe if you look very closely, there's like a bit of a ridge here. And that's because the shrink wrap always overlaps the cone of the grip by a few millimeters. And you're always going to get this kind of little thing. Whereas if I were to use electrical tape or just foam wrap, you wouldn't get that. So if you see this little ridge here, then you know that there's a shrink wrap under that. Okay, so what am I actually going to do today? Well, what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to take this grip off down to the shrink wrap, and I'm going to attempt to take the shrink wrap off. Okay, so why would I do that? Well, I kind of have a bit of a theory that the shrink wrap is a little heavy. Now this racket, I mentioned that it doesn't weigh the same as my other CQ. So this is actually about 93 grams, and I can kind of show you that right now. Whereas my other CQ is in the 92 gram range. You can see this is 93.28 right here. So it's a little heavier. It's also more head heavy, but I'm wondering if by taking off the shrink wrap and by replacing it with electrical tape, can I reduce the weight by 1 or 2 grams? In that case, it would be more within my comfort range. I tend to prefer rackets below 92 grams or below. This is 93, which is, you know, still usable, of course, but yeah, so let's take a look first. This grip is still fine. I'm going to see if I can reuse this over grip because it's still in good condition, but we're going to undo the rest and then we'll see how that turns out. So undoing that. Okay, now one of the implications of having the racket with a shrink wrap grip is, now when you see that a racket is 4U or 3U, that's almost always the weight of the racket as it's sold. Okay, so this says 80 to 84 grams on it, which is 4U. And so that would be the weight of the racket as it sits on the shelf when you buy it. Now this has string on it, so it's gonna weigh more than 84 grams. So let's take a look here. And yeah, so it's 87. So if you subtract the weight from the strings, that would put it within the range, okay? Now I want you to think for a bit, what makes this different than a racket that comes with an undergrip on it? And you'll know that when it has an undergrip, I personally always like to take the undergrip off, okay? So from that, you can kind of probably postulate, yeah, so what the difference is that if this racket comes with an undergrip and sits on the shelf at, let's just call it 84 grams or 83 grams to be simple, okay? This on the shelf will be without strings and without any grip will be 83 grams, okay? Now imagine you get another 4U racket with an undergrip on it. It's rated for 4U. On the shelf, when you go to buy that racket, let's say it's also gonna be 83 grams. When I do everything that I want to the racket and have it game ready, this one's gonna weigh more. And why is that? Because I'm only adding material to this racket here, the one with the shrink wrap grip. Okay, I'm putting the strings on, that adds a few grams. I'm putting the cushion wrap on, I'm putting the undergrip, or sorry, the overgrip on. That's only adding weight. If this had the original stock grip on it at 83 grams, so I'm removing that, so I'm removing a few grams. I don't know exactly how much an undergrip would weigh, and actually that's one thing that I'm gonna do in the future, but I imagine it's maybe somewhere around 4 to 5 grams, maybe even more. So I'm removing that, and then I'm adding the electrical tape, which I don't do here, but the electrical tape is not nearly as heavy as the stock grip. So what happens is I'm subtracting weight, then I'm adding some of it back in. But the end result is, if this racket and another one with another 83 gram racket with a undergrip were side by side in the store and I bought them and I did them, this would likely be heavier. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this off. I'm gonna put on that electrical tape and I'm gonna put everything back on. And we're gonna see if it actually becomes lighter or not. So just an interesting experiment. These can be convenient, but at the end of the day, not only do they kind of affect the outcome of the end weight of your racket, it's possible that this by itself also increases the weight of the racket. So if we take this off and redo everything, is it going to be lighter? Yeah, we'll find out. That's one of the things that we're going to find out. So yeah, and that's also something you should keep in mind when you're buying a racket like this. Whereas for a 4U racket, when I'm taking that undergrip off and then, kind of applying that back, my rackets tend to lie within the 88 to 91 gram range. Whereas if you're just adding that material on top of an 83 gram racket, you're usually going to end up maybe 10 grams heavier. So, hence the 93 gram racket. So we're going to see. So I'm going to start at the bottom. The main thing here is I've never done this. We're doing this for the first time. I have an X-Acto knife here. There's going to be wood under this. We have our end cap. Now I don't really mind damaging the end cap. It's just a piece of plastic. I'm not going to be able to cut through it. The wood I'm not too worried about. If there's like a little cut in the wood, it's not really going to affect the structural integrity. I don't want to damage the paint on the cone, however. So that's where I'm going to see if I can be careful. And yeah, so let's go ahead and try that out. So just being really gentle here, kind of less is more. So I don't want to cut too hard, because if I cut too deep, then I'm going to go too deep. So you can see I did this perfectly, managed to, I scratched it a tiny bit, surface scratches, but generally not that bad. And then I'm going to kind of try to pull it up as I cut, pull it away from the wood so that I don't I damage the wood as little as possible. Keep cutting here. Keep going. And stuff. Kind of like some surgery, yeah. It's kind of interesting. Now I wonder if it's actually more effective if I go underneath. Let's just give it a try. I actually don't think that this is going to work better, but it's like you might think it would because it's like, oh, get under and slice upwards so it's safer, but the tip of this is probably going to dig into the handle. So I don't think it's going to work very well. And yeah, it's like kind of getting stuck a little bit. So it's just more intuitive to treat it kind of like a pencil. So maybe if I go at an angle, oh yeah, there we go. See, now I don't have to worry about going too deep if I'm at an angle like this. Although the line won't be quite as straight. So we're just gonna come here, and then we're gonna be really careful when we come to the tip. I'm just gonna gently, I think I'm gonna cut. Okay, I made a little score on the top and I just ripped it apart. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's what the shrink wrap looks like. As you can see, it's just like a piece of plastic shrink wrap. If you do any home improvement, you've definitely seen this before. It's used commonly for electrical wiring, but in general, this kind of material is used to defend things from moisture and to kind of seal it. So very popular for its use in wiring. When you twist wires together or like kind of crimp wires together, you want to seal it to make sure no moisture gets in and nothing can disturb the connection. And yeah, here on badminton rackets as well. And yeah, we can see some stuff here. This wood, the manufacturer on this wood, the grain, a little bit diagonal. We've got kind of a not so good of a piece here. You can see some the result of kind of sanding or planing against the grain. You get these kind of ridges here. It's very difficult to sand it down flat when you've got that, but the other side is smooth. We also have our trademark Redson wood burn here, which I think it's funny that they go through the effort of doing that even if it's under the shrink wrap, because it's like no one's ever going to see that. Like most people aren't even going to take, you know, a lot of people aren't even going to take the undergrip off to begin with. And then especially for one that has the shrink wrap, it's really, I think a lot of people aren't going to do that. So for the grand reveal, let's see how much this weighs. Wow, 6.6 grams is a lot. That is actually more than I expected. You wouldn't notice it because when you pick this up, this is like just a, you know, light piece of plastic or whatever. 6 grams is crazy. That is a lot of weight. Okay, so let me show you this now. When I put this on, even with the strings, it's gonna be, yeah, just 80 grams. So let's go ahead and do the rest of this. Actually, you know what, just for the sake of giggles, let's put this over grip here. 5 grams, cushion wrap. Just under a gram. Cool. Yeah, so this is the same weight as a whole overgrip, even though this is much thinner, so this is pretty dense material. And I guess the real question is like how the electrical tape, the length of electrical tape that I put on this, like how much does that weigh? I'm not going to measure that today, but I think in the future I am going to do an experiment where I actually weigh that against this. So like now that this is documented, we know this is quite a heavy piece of material. So you know what, maybe we do measure it since we're already here. Yeah, so let me tell you what I'm going to do. I don't know exactly what length of tape it takes to do this, but I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to wrap the whole handle how I would normally. I'm going to do it quickly because, like, you know, I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to cut it And I'm going to take it off, and then we're going to weigh it. And then we're going to see how that compares. Okay. So this is, yeah, really interesting experiment here. So I'm just going to go over this really quickly because, again, I'm going to take this off and throw it away. So it doesn't really have to be as good as my final example. So as you can see, I'm kind of speed running it. Normally I'd be way more careful, but it's fine. Some of you probably spend this little time on it as well, so I'm not super kind of concerned about that. So we get to the top here. We'll do 2, 1, and then 2, about there. Scissors. All right, grand reveal. So now we're going to completely undo everything. Very nice. And boop, oh shit. 4.2 grams. Interesting. So this is almost 2.5 grams lighter than the shrink wrap, which means that indeed, by taking it off and using the electrical tape, we might make this racket about 2 grams lighter. Very interesting. And see, this is the kind of science, this is the kind of racket science that I live for. All right, and then now armed with that knowledge, let's redo this for real. For realsies. And I'm gonna focus more this time because this is, you know, this is actually the result that I want. Yeah, this handle is not in great condition, unfortunately. It's seen better days. Actually, that's not true. How could it have seen a better day? Maybe it was when it was still in the tree, because it wouldn't have been so sanded to shit. I don't know. Okay. And just to verify that, let's go ahead and weigh this. So if I remember correctly, with this guy, with the grip taken off, how much was it? It was like, you can go back and rewind the video. I think it was 85 or 86 grams. So that means this should be, yeah, 84.8. And then once we apply this, which is, I think it was like 5 grams, and this was 1 gram, so another 6 plus 84. Figure that's about 91.5 maybe. It's gonna be my guess. So let's go and find out. You know, and now that I know that this works, I might do this with my Redson ESG as well, because the ESG also has this shrink wrap grip, and mine is actually kind of heavy. It's like 94 grams. So, and if I take this off, save a couple grams there, then I could probably get it down to 92, which would be a lot more comfortable. So that sounds like a good idea. We're gonna do that. So that'll be the idea for the next video. Also, it's really splitting hairs, but the electrical tape is thinner than the shrink wrap too. So if you're also someone who really likes the small grips, then yeah, the electrical tape will be better than the shrink wrap grip. It's a very tiny amount, but it is noticeable if you have sensitive hands/fingers, kind of like I do. You know, it has been shown that your hands and fingers are so sensitive that they can detect bumps as tiny as, like, I don't know, a couple, what is it, microns, or I don't know, someone did some sort of study on that. But basically, if the grip's off by what, like 0. Like a couple tenths of a millimeter, it actually is detectable and noticeable. So yeah, we can actually see the fact that the grip is narrower because I gripped it before it ended right at the top of the cone, and actually it's going longer here. So that's kind of just another deduction by yours truly. Okay. Yeah. All right. So instead of 93, oh, okay, so that's lighter than I expected, 90.7. Interesting. Well, so that was a really fun video. Wasn't really sure what to expect there, but this is the kind of stuff I love doing. And if you like rocket science, I'm sure this video would be entertaining for you too. Meanwhile, still working on some very exciting videos. You know, if you're interested in the kind of the technique and body aspect, I have a lot of videos coming up with physiotherapist Dr. Chris Lee, who I've featured in some of my previous videos. If you're here and you're excited for the racket reviews, I have some more of those coming up as well. And yeah, a lot of more exciting content. So stay tuned. I'm probably going to make a video of this for my Redson ESG as well. And yeah, I guess that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching this exciting video, and I will see you in the next one.